Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Apologies for the absence of new videos for quite some time, but hopefully I've got something that'll make up for it today. So, today I'm going to talk about how to design the ultimate max DPS elite capable build. So just having a quick hover over the kind of things that I'm using. All my locators are the same. This, if you've seen any of my other videos, should be looking pretty familiar. So it's a little bit updated to perhaps older videos that I've done, but yeah, I'm going to go through some of the changes and this ship in particular, because I've not showcased this ship on YouTube yet. This, in my opinion, the Cranium Imperium is the highest DPS capable ship in the game. You can take that as just my opinion with a pinch of salt, whatever. There are a couple of other ships that, thanks to the new experimental weapon, the Voice of the Prophets, I obviously don't have ACT or CLR on console, so I can't test it, but I have done a couple tests with the Alachi Satef and a couple of other escorts, and they can get very near and occasionally spike more damage than this, but it's not consistent. The Voice of Prophets is, I think, a little too slow to really be taking over these kind of ships, but maybe you could make that work with a destroyer. But aside from that, this is what you're looking at if you're going for top elite DPS build. So let's get into it. We've got the two-piece Nakara in the form of shield and impulse engines. Now, before it was a case of running the Nakara deflector. The deflector's pretty awesome. I still like this thing. But the purpose of this is for the Cat 2 bonus energy weapon damage, because that does actually make a really big difference. However, now there's colony equipment out, and this deflector is, if you're running an energy build, the biggest increase to your DPS you can get from a deflector. So based on your hull percent, which is like whatever, it's your crit severity and crit chance up to 4% and 15%, which is it's huge. So that's great. Still running coalition. I know some people are going nuts for sensitive linked stuff. I'm not being funny, but there's not a chance that does more damage than coalitions. Not even close. Still running the Nausicaan because I'm Disruptor, and that's pretty much the best main set for Disruptor you can get for the two sets of Disruptor damage from the Nausicaan Siphon Capacitor and the three-piece set. Not to mention the hull penetration is very nice. The Terran Task Force, I still like this. I mean, you could swap it out for another coalition now that re-engineering's come in. It's much easier to get super powerful weapons with god roll stats on them, so you could run that if you don't want to go through the effort of claiming the Terran Task Force. But I like the occasional insane damage I see with, you know, just an energy weapon pop an enemy for upwards of 90k. It's hilarious. Cutting Beam still using mostly for the two-piece set, and I'm going to use the assimilated module anyway, so why the hell not. Mega Weapon Amplifier, obviously because of the firing rate versus on hit proc change, it doesn't activate as much as it used to, but it still activates more than enough to get that nice little boost. It's like the old days of running Marion Doff or whatever, but it still does its purpose, and not to mention the crit chance, severity, and weapon power is lovely. Now, these two consoles are sort of a new thing, not really, but, you know, the reason they have the two-piece set of this is it's basically an extra vulnerability locator for the privilege of having them on. The click effect of this console is okay, but it's kind of a appear, does massive damage, and then you got 2 minutes to wait for it again, so it's not really reliable DPS, but it's a thing. It's 1% crit chance, projectile damage, and of course it makes a two-piece set with the DPRM, which is pretty much the god console. You know, it is what it is. binaural and tachyokinetic. If you want to run an energy build, you run these, period. That's literally the end of it. And of course, still the Elite Fleet Warp Core. I've had a look at the Colony ones, and honestly, I still favour this over those. So that's that. In terms of stations, there's a couple ways that you could run this ship in particular, whether you're either running Octobat or you're not running Octobat. Now, first thing a few people are going to be wondering is, why the hell have you got Delta on and not Beta? Honestly, nobody's going to take aggro from me. It just doesn't happen. And I run Delta Prime, so I'm constantly going to be getting that massive crit chance increase. I mean, my static crit chance when I'm in combat is pretty much always around 50%, which for a Fed character is just hilarious. So Delta 3 for me, but if you don't have Delta Prime, or you don't want to run it, or you're not 100% certain you can constantly keep aggro off other elite players, then Beta 3 would be the best option for you. Obviously Fire at Will 3, you've got to have this as high as you can, otherwise don't use it. Spread 2, it's nice, it'd be great to have Spread 3, but there's no room. Chemosite, obviously, because it's PvE. Attack team, Eng team, Psi team, you know, basic stuff. OSS 2, sorry. This is always nice, you know, huge power levels for a short burst. It works particularly well in combination with Subspace Vortex 3. Now, I don't actually have EPG on this current build, it's more of a tank build, so this isn't getting its full utilization. You don't have to use this. You could go with the option of, where is it, more tanks. So go Hazmatus 3, transfer shield strength 2, and then you'd have a little bit more survivability from the greater hull heal and an extra shield heal in there, as opposed to Subspace Vortex 3. But honestly, even without EPG on the captain skill, I find for the most part it doesn't matter, because once you pop all your captain skills and everything else that you've got on your ship, and by the time you're in combat or your Cat 2 effects pop up, it does more than enough damage anyway. Octobat, because that's just what I do. However, there's alternatives now if you either don't want to because you hate Octobat for whatever reason, or you can't afford the duty officers, again for whatever reason. You don't necessarily have to run Octobat. You can run it a little bit differently. Now, with this being pilot, if you wanted to be super risky, you could have no, that's not my pilot spec. But you could have a pilot engineer and run Flyer Apart 2. Flyer Apart is actually a very nice skill because it's a Cat 2 effect that it gives you when it ends. Admittedly, it's like 20 seconds of pain for only 10 seconds of power, but when you get that burst going, it does make a big difference. Well, you could not run that if you need more survivability. You've got the option of RSP2 or whatever. You could interchange these for something else that you fancied. Generally speaking, you're probably going to go with Eng Team 2, have that as EPTS, and probably RSP, which is Reverse Shield Polarity, and that slot there if you needed that survivability, because believe it or not, Octobat does increase your survivability quite a bit. Now, if you're not using Octobat, where are you getting your cooldown from? Well, since the introduction of the Domino console, it's made it possible, if you can do well enough with killing stuff, you can kind of compensate for not having either Octobat or peak efficiency based build. So you get this from the Bajoran Interceptor, which was an event reward, and the Timeline Stabilizer. Now this is a little bit of an issue, because if you didn't manage to get both of these from the event rewards, you can't run this option. It's as simple as that. You just can't. But if you did, that would be an alternative. So maybe instead of running the DPRM and the Point Defense warhead, because they're crazy expensive, you could run the Timeline Stabilizer and the Domino console. That will cover about 60% of the effect that Octobat gives you. If, unlike me, you had points in your engineering, tactical, and science. Well, I've got one in tactical, but if you had an extra point in scientific and engineering readiness, that would cover another good portion of that. There are bridge officers you can get for it. Personally, I don't like them, but there are. And you could go down that route instead of Arcs to Bat. So you don't have to go with this option all of the time if you really, really don't want to. I'm going to be honest, I would still recommend it because there's a couple of other things that you lose out on if you're not using Arcs to Bat. So for me on my Starship traits, I've got Emergency Weapon Cycle, Delta Prime, Promise of Ferocity. This comes from the Andorian tactical variant, Pedal to the Metal, and Cold Hearted because I run Arcs to Bat. If you're not running Arcs to Bat, this has to go immediately, but you could replace that for, God, where is it? Supremacy. So that would cover some of what Arcs to Bat gives you if you're not running it. And obviously you can't run Cold Hearted anyway. But you also wouldn't be able to run controlled countermeasures, and this makes a big difference to DPS. 7% Cat 2 is more than 1.5 vulnerability locators at 14 epic. You know, that's the difference between Cat 1 and Cat 2. Category 1 effects are, you know, multipliers of base value only. Category 2 are multipliers of final value, so after all of you Category 1 stuff's applied. And then you've got your technical Cat 3 things like crit chance, whatever, they go off the absolute final value, and they vary up and down depending on what's happening in a mission. For space rep, crit chance, severity, pretty obvious. I've got automated protomatic conduits in currently because I just didn't elite. But you don't have to have that. You can have enhanced armor pen, tactical advantage because yum-yums, and control countermeasures because I'm running Cold Hearted. These two make a brilliant combo because Cold Hearted will apply to pretty much everything that you touch, so you will always get that bonus, which is great. These two are your 40% Cat 2, and then the only other two damaging space traits I use are Fluidic Cocoon and Superior Beam Training. I just find these to be the two most reliable sources of Cat 2 damage increase on personal space traits. Everything else I have pretty much for healing. I mean, self-modulating fire is nice for that initial burst, help you clear out a room pretty much immediately, and while your buffs is stacking up and everything else. Good Day to Die, I think, is mandatory if you're a tactical captain, because in PvE, nothing's going to take you down to like 25% hull anyway, so just have it. And then, yeah, just tank traits, pretty much. This is for elites after all, and you can't run in there with you know, a completely naked glass cannon, otherwise you're not going to have consistent DPS because you're going to be dying all the time. Duty officers. Now this interchanges. I've got bloody PvP duty officers at the minute, but if you're running Oxymat, you want to have 3 technicians. If not, run whatever the hell you want, doesn't really matter. But for damage, crit chance and crit severity buffs are wonderful. You know, 3% crit chance and up to 30% crit severity. It does make a big difference. If you're running a ship that can't run reverse shield polarity, then the Nicole space warfare specialists, whatever bridge officers you use most of, be it tactical, Eng, Psi, whatever, go with that one. This makes a massive difference. Honestly, if you don't have RSP, this is the primary source of healing that I have. It does have a lockout, and it's got 2 conditional effects on whether it happens or not, but it seems to be up when it's needed, pretty much. If your health starts to go down, odds are this is going to be kicking in sometime soon, and you're going to heal yourself up to pretty much full. If you're running a ship that can have RSP on it, then the reverse shield polarity DOF might be a good option for you. I was just on a ship that had RSP 3, so it was worth running it. On this ship, obviously, I don't have that, so there would be no point, and that's where you get your survivability from your duty officers. Captain skill tree. Honestly, this has turned into a point of contention argument on Reddit for so much of the percentage, so whatever, I'm not getting involved with this. I have 26, 10, 10. That's a rule I like to stick to if it's a PvE build. You know, it does me just fine. You know, I've got a little more on the tank side of things because that's just what I like to do. But you have your 26 down here so that if you're fighting a big target, you can absolutely melt the living crap out of them with Focus Frenzy. Lovely jubbly. You don't need the third option unless you're going a full PvP build and your support for your team so that they get Frenzy as well. Generally speaking, not really needed or worth it. You'd go for the other two that affect you personally. And then 10 points into either of these, depending on what you want. I mean, if you are a Romulan, I would highly recommend that you don't take these 2 points into hull plating. You just have the one, and then go down with warp core potential and warp core efficiency. If you're a Romulan, it's kind of needed, to be honest with you, but the damage resistance, not so much. But yeah, I hope that's enlightened some people or given you some inspiration, whatever. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.